adrenaline charging inside, fear clawing at his chest. "Grandma?" he called, voice cracking as he sprinted through the house, checking every room. Then he reached the bedroom. His breath caught. His eyes widened. There she was, resting peacefully on a futon, her frail frame rising and falling with each steady breath. Moon's legs nearly gave out as relief flooded through him. He stepped forward cautiously, his hand shaking as he gently touched her shoulder. "Grandma," he whispered, voice thick with emotion, giving her a light shake. Her eyelids fluttered open and she reached out with trembling fingers, brushing them against his hand. "Moon," she murmured weakly, "is that you?" At that moment, Moon felt his composure crack. His chest tightened and tears blurred his vision. The sheer relief of seeing her alive overwhelmed him. Without thinking, he collapsed beside her, wrapping his arms around her fragile frame, his body trembling with sobs. "I'm sorry, Grandma," he choked out between ragged breaths. "I'm so sorry it took me this long." Despite his tears, she smiled, her warm, wrinkled hand patting his back. "You're a good boy, Moon. I knew you'd come for me." Just then, a system notification flashed in front of Kojut. Moon's loyalty has reached 100. Moon has officially been registered as a vassal. Number of available vassal slots has increased. June squinted at the message, confused. Huh? Apparently, reaching a certain level of trust unlocked an additional vassal slot. Curious, he pulled up his current vassal list. Choi Ha-yoon, Fatty. Level 20 Moon, level 30. Kong Diaku, Toy, level 25. June rubbed his chin, surprised. Wait, I can level them up too? Excited, he tapped the plus symbol next to Moon's name. Another notification appeared. Insufficient funds to level up. Then, a second window popped up with the required amount. 100 million won is needed to upgrade Vassal Moon to the next level. June's jaw nearly hit the floor. 100 million won? His fists clenched as frustration surged through him. That was absurd. Just to level up one vassal? With a sigh, he ran a hand through his hair and lightly punched the table. "I'm sorry, Moon," he muttered. "I'll make it up to you. I'll assign you missions every single day." Just then, a noise pulled him from his thoughts. The elevator was moving. June's eyes narrowed. Who the hell could that be? His comrades were still outside, fighting goblins. No one else was supposed to be here. Activating Ultimate Eyes, his pupils darkened as his vision extended, scanning the entire building. Two figures stood outside one of the apartment doors, a man and a woman. The man carried a box on his shoulder while the woman knocked, her voice carrying through the hallway as she called out to whoever was inside. Something about them felt off. Their posture was tense, their faces gaunt, dark circles shadowing their eyes. Exhaustion, or something more sinister. June's stomach sank as recognition clicked. That's Fatty's apartment. Inside, Fatty's wife hesitated, staring at the door. The knocking continued. She swallowed hard, then called out cautiously, "Who is it?" Seconds ticked by. Then, against her better judgment, she reached for the handle and opened the door. Standing at the doorway was a young woman who greeted her with a bright smile. "Hello," she said cheerfully. "I'm Kim Dabin." Then, gesturing toward the man beside her, she continued, "And this is my younger brother, Kim Miho." She mentioned that they lived in Unit 1701. Intrigued, Fatty's wife asked what brought them there. The girl sighed, explaining that she had only come because she desperately needed help, leaving Fatty's wife wondering what kind of help she could possibly need. Then, with a sudden burst of desperation, the girl blurted out, practically shouting, "Would it be possible for you to let me take a shower?" Fatty's wife was completely caught off guard. Her jaw dropped. Of all the things she had expected to hear, this was the absolute last. Still trying to process it, she blinked in disbelief and asked if she had heard correctly. "Did you really just ask to take a shower? And that's all you need?" The girl nodded eagerly. "Yes, that's all. I just want a shower." Relieved that the request wasn't anything too complicated, Fatty's wife let out a small chuckle and waved them inside. "Well, that's easy enough. Come in." The two entered, expressing their gratitude. The man, still carrying the box on his shoulder, also thanked her before asking where he should put it. Curious, Fatty's wife asked what was inside. As he placed it down on the floor, the girl, still grateful, explained that it was just canned food and some miscellaneous supplies. The man opened the box, revealing various types of canned goods, exactly as she had said. Seeing this, Fatty's wife smiled and thanked them, mentioning that they really didn't have to go through all that trouble. The girl waved it off. "It's nothing, really. If you think about it, I just walked into a stranger's house and made a pretty weird request." Just as she finished speaking, something caught her attention from the corner of her eye. She turned her head slightly, her gaze landing on the collection of bows lined up against the wall alongside Toy's baseball bat. Curious, she couldn't help but ask, "Do these bows and that bat belong to the owner of this apartment?" Fatty's wife hadn't expected that question. Still, after a brief pause, she shook her head. "No. Actually, these don't belong to the apartment's owner. The real owners live in another unit, but it's kind of a complicated situation to explain in just a few words." The girl nodded in understanding. "I see." Watching everything unfold, Ko-jun deactivated his ability and thought to himself that, so far, they didn't seem like bad people. He then shifted his gaze toward the window and murmured, "I'll go check it out later." After a brief moment of thought, he added, "I also need to talk to them. I want to ask if they'd be willing to help rescue other survivors from the nearby apartments." Before he could dwell on it further, a sudden system notification popped up. June blinked in surprise as the message appeared before him. "You have successfully hunted a red tiger." A second notification followed immediately after. "You have gained a large amount of XP." Then another, 39,718,384 abilities to their limit. Despite the strain, outside, the battlefield was far from calm. Han, the archer, and the guy with glasses were both lightly wounded. In front of them, the corpse of a massive red tiger lay motionless on the ground, and next to it, the werebear was also severely injured, struggling to move. The rest of the group stood frozen, unsure of what to do next. June observed everything, but a strange feeling crept up on him. His stomach twisted, and his chest tightened as a wave of unease washed over him. What the hell just happened? Suddenly, a sharp pain shot through his body. His muscles spasmed, cold sweat dripping down his face as an overwhelming pressure gripped his chest. He groaned in agony, barely able to keep himself upright. Then, the system sent another notification. "You have discovered individuals who are eligible to receive citizenship." Through the pain, June barely managed to process the message. There were still people who weren't citizens yet. His breathing was ragged, but he forced himself to speak. "System, grant them citizenship." A new notification appeared instantly. A list of names flashed across the screen. "Citizenship has been granted." And then another alert. "You have officially reached 50 citizens." An additional message followed. The amount of XP and money that citizens can earn has increased by 100%. But the surprises didn't stop there. A final notification appeared on the screen, revealing something unexpected. As the number of citizens has reached a specific threshold, all citizens have unlocked a new ability. Power of Trust. June stared at the words, his mind racing. Power of Trust. What does that even mean? Despite his lingering confusion, his thoughts drifted back to the battlefield. He clenched his jaw. Did anyone get seriously hurt? Back on the streets, Moon was slightly injured and gasping for breath, making a tremendous effort as he carried his grandmother on his back. Everyone else is wounded, desperately running while providing cover for Toy, who is carrying the injured warbear woman. Observing the chaotic scene, June quickly realizes the situation outside is far worse than he had imagined. And of all people to be seriously injured, it had to be the warbear. As the group races to escape, a horde of goblins suddenly emerges in front of the two carrying the wounded. The team members covering them from behind immediately unleash a volley of arrows, striking down goblins to clear a path. The archer, watching closely, is startled by the precision of the man with glasses. "How the hell did you pull that off with a single shot?" she asks, eyes wide. The man looks just as confused. "I honestly have no idea." As they continue running, the archer suddenly notices something. "For some reason, my body feels lighter." Han, running beside her, nods in agreement. "Yeah, and I just realized I'm not even out of breath anymore." Meanwhile, back with June, the system finally provides an explanation. Ability, Power of Trust. A passive skill that increases all stats by X%, where X equals the trust level of each citizen. Kojun stares at the message in disbelief. This skill didn't even exist before. How the hell is it so strong? Then, another realization hits him. Every single member of his group has at least 50 trust points or more. That means all their stats, stamina, strength, reflexes, and more, have naturally increased by 50%. At that very moment, Moon's expression shifts, as if something suddenly clicks in his mind. He has a hunch. This must be another one of June's new abilities. The system then notifies June of something else. Both of the girls have now surpassed 30 loyalty points. As a result, they are now eligible to be registered as vassals. Without hesitation, Kim immediately commands the system to register both of them. The moment it happens, the two women suddenly stop in their tracks, their bodies tingling as an overwhelming power surges through them. System update. Kim Gang, level 20, has acquired the skill. Piercing. Uyin, level 25, has awakened the skill. Poisonous Mist. Now, brimming with newfound power, the two turn back, ready to face the goblins chasing them. The archer steadies herself, drawing her bow. She fires an arrow straight at the goblins. Normally, her shots always land as headshots every single time. But this time, something is different. The arrow doesn't just pierce through one goblin, it ricochets, striking several others and tearing through them effortlessly. Confused, the archer furrows her brows. What the hell? What just happened? The system promptly provides an answer. Skill. Piercing. A tier S skill that uses mental strength to fire a penetrating arrow. June, standing with his arms crossed, watches as the information unfolds before him. Now that he knows what the ability is, he immediately issues a command to the system. New quest, created mission. The archer must use piercing to hunt 10 goblins within a 10-minute time limit. Reward, increased piercing proficiency. Penalty for failure, fatigue. As he processes this, June shifts his attention to the other ability. Unlike piercing, this one seems far trickier. Poisonous Mist is a deadly attack, and while it's classified as a B-rank skill, using it incorrectly could endanger the entire team. June exhales sharply, deciding to deal with it later. I'll figure it out when the time comes. Just then, the system sends another notification. Mission complete. The archer has successfully eliminated 10 goblins. A follow-up message appears. Daily mission limit reached. Evaluating the results, June sighs, unimpressed. The rewards weren't that great this time. But now that the battle outside has settled, he decides it's time to check on the citizens living on the lower floors. Activating Ultimate Eyes. He scans the corridors. His gaze locks onto the silhouette of a man walking calmly through the halls, hands tucked into his pockets. June watches as the man heads toward the bathroom, likely to collect water. Smart. This man has good survival instincts. He's gathering water before supplies run low. Shifting his focus elsewhere, June spots another pair, a man and a woman sitting together, preparing to eat. He observes them for a moment, realizing something important. They're already capable of gathering food and water on their own. Then, in another part of the building, something unexpected catches his eye. A woman lying motionless on the floor inside a room. Without a second thought, June bolts toward her. The system immediately provides an update. Kim De Jong, trust level 18. Ability, awakened. Healing. June's heart pounds in his chest. Healing. His eyes dart between the system message and the unconscious woman on the floor. She can heal wounds. A surge of urgency floods through him. She's the first healer they've found, and they desperately need her. Without hesitation, June sprints forward. He has to help her, no matter what. After sprinting through the hallways, June finally arrives at the door of the room where the woman had collapsed. His breathing is still heavy from the run, but he quickly composes himself and reaches for the doorknob. Slowly, he tries to turn it, hoping to gain access without any trouble. However, to his surprise, the door is locked from the inside. A deep frown settles on his face as he realizes there's no way to open it from the outside. Frustration creeps into his thoughts, his shoulders slumping slightly. Just as he starts contemplating another course of action, something unexpected happens. His eyes widen as a new system notification appears before him. By sheer coincidence, or perhaps fate itself, he has just acquired a new skill. New ability acquired, Invisible Hand, Level 1. The system promptly displays its details. The ability allows him to summon and control an invisible hand at will. Reading the notification, a surge of newfound determination fills his chest. His grip tightens into fists as he mentally acknowledges the absurd yet undeniable reality of his new power. Silently, he expresses his gratitude for this sudden stroke of fortune. Closing his eyes for a brief moment, June focuses entirely on the locked door before him. He visualizes himself breaking the lock, willing it to yield under his command. When he opens his eyes, he is met with an unexpected yet welcome sight. Right before him, materialized from sheer energy, is a lock-breaking tool. A sturdy bolt cutter formed entirely of the strange energy he has come to rely on. Without hesitation, he reaches forward, taking hold of the newly formed tool. The cold sensation of the manifested object in his grip confirms its existence. Without wasting another second, he positions it against the lock and applies pressure. A sharp snap echoes through the quiet hallway as the lock gives way effortlessly. With a swift motion, he pushes the door open and rushes inside. The moment he steps into the dimly lit room, his gaze immediately lands on the unmoving woman lying on the floor. Now that he is seeing her up close, the eerie stillness of her body makes the entire scene feel unsettling. June quickly kneels beside her, concern evident in his expression. Reaching out, he gently nudges her shoulder, his voice calm yet firm as he speaks. "Can you hear me? Are you all right?" There is no response. A deep sense of unease washes over him. Carefully, he observes her condition, scanning for any visible injuries. But what he notices instead sends a wave of worry through him. Her face is unnaturally pale, her lips dry and cracked. severe dehydration. His mind races. Dehydration this extreme could be dangerous. She needs help immediately. Quickly, his eyes dart around the room, searching for anything that might assist in stabilizing her condition. Then, something catches his attention, making him pause. There's water in the room. Yet despite the presence of water, she is still in this critical state. It makes no sense. The contradiction unsettles him, sending a cold shiver down his spine. Glancing back at the woman, he forces himself to push aside the troubling thoughts. Now is not the time to question the situation. The priority is saving her. A sudden idea forms in his mind. Without hesitation, he opens the system interface. There's a chance this might work. Mission assigned. Breathe. Objective. Breathe. Reward. Immediate recovery from dehydration. The system processes the command, deducting 10-point Westert 1 as the cost for activating the mission. Almost instantly, a soft blue aura begins to envelop the woman's body. June watches intently, his pulse quickening as the energy works through her. Then, faint sounds escape her lips, a weak, breathy noise, but a clear sign that she is beginning to stir. Relief floods through him. It worked. Slowly, her eyelids flutter open. Her gaze is hazy and unfocused. A blurred silhouette of a figure stands before her, a voice reaching her ears asking if she is awake. Her mind struggles to process the situation. Her voice, weak but laced with confusion, manages to form a question. Who are you? June straightens slightly, meeting her dazed gaze. He introduces himself, explaining that he lives in a unit just above hers in the building. She blinks, her expression still foggy with exhaustion. The information doesn't seem to register right away. Still lying on the floor, she questions him again, her voice laced with uncertainty. How did you get inside? Seeing no reason to hide the truth, June states it plainly. I saw that you were unwell. I broke the door open to reach you. A moment of silence lingers between them. Then, her breath hitches. Her expression shifts as realization dawns. Without warning, tears begin streaming down her face. And yet she does not say a word. She simply cries, as if the weight of everything she had been enduring had finally caught up with her. She raises her hands to her face, wiping away the tears in an attempt to hide them. Her shoulders tremble slightly as she struggles to compose herself. June, watching her closely, immediately senses that something is wrong. There is an uneasiness in the way she reacts, something beyond just exhaustion or confusion. Taking a deep breath, he calls her name. Kim De-young. His voice is firm, yet gentle. She slowly pushes herself up from the floor, still visibly shaken. He speaks again, apologizing for being so abrupt, for barging into her life so suddenly. But he makes it clear. He needs her help. There is urgency in his tone, something that makes her pause despite her lingering distress. Now sitting upright, her tear-filled eyes meet his. Though her expression remains guarded, her lips, still cracked from dehydration, barely part as she listens to him speak. June wastes no time explaining. One of my allies is severely injured. The words seem to take a moment to register. De-young slowly turns her body toward him, staring as if trying to process what he just said. Silence stretches between them. She blinks, her mind racing, trying to make sense of his words. His ally. Someone severely injured. Why is he telling her this? She doesn't understand. She doesn't even know this man. Panic begins to rise in her chest. He wants her to save someone. Why her? Doubt and fear intertwine within her thoughts. Her hands tremble slightly as she lowers them to her lap. It seems impossible, an absurd request thrown at her out of nowhere. He's putting his faith in the wrong person. And then, another realization strikes her, like a bolt of lightning. How does he know she's a nurse? Her breath catches. She's never told him that. No one in this building should even know. A wave of unease washes over her. Yet at the same time, something about the way he speaks, the way he asks for help, doesn't feel threatening. There is no malice in his words, no ill intent in his eyes. Still hesitant, still uncertain, she makes a decision. She has to see for herself. Slowly, she turns to face him completely. Though suspicion lingers in her gaze, she swallows down her doubts and agrees to help. Her voice, though weak, carries a firm resolve as she asks where exactly she is supposed to go. June doesn't answer right away. Instead, he opens the system interface, his fingers moving swiftly across the translucent screen in front of him. He asks her to wait just a moment. He assigns her a mission, one that instructs her to use healing magic to cure the wounded werebear. The mission comes with a 1-hour time limit, a reward labeled as improved, and, to his relief, no penalties. His eyes flicker with determination as he reads the details. He must save the werebear no matter what. Turning back to Dae-Young, he tells her that for now she should rest. He will personally bring the injured person to her. Then, he instructs her to find something to help with her own dehydration. But Dae-Young, already overwhelmed, barely has time to process his words before something utterly impossible happens. From seemingly nowhere, oranges begin to materialize in midair. Her eyes widen in pure shock, her breath hitching as she watches several bright oranges fall from the void and land in front of her. For a long moment, she simply stares, her mouth slightly open, completely stunned. Then, snapping out of her daze, she frantically raises a shaking finger, pointing at the fruit on the floor. "What is this?" Her voice trembles as she demands an answer. June, realizing how bizarre this must seem to her, quickly apologizes. But Dae-Young isn't satisfied. Her heartbeat pounds in her ears as she watches more oranges drop into existence. Where are these coming from? How is this happening? What kind of person is this man? Before she can demand further explanations, June simply turns his back to her. A slight smirk plays on his lips as he tells her he'll explain everything later once things have calmed down. And with that, he walks away, leaving her still kneeling on the floor, still staring in disbelief. He exits the room with a final request. He reminds her that she is still weak, that her body needs to recover, and he asks, no, insists, that she prioritize her own rest. As soon as June is gone, Dae-Young lowers her gaze to the scattered oranges. Slowly, she reaches out, picking one up. The texture, the weight, the coolness against her fingertips, it all feels real. She squeezes the fruit gently, expecting it to vanish like an illusion, but it remains solid in her grasp. A shiver runs down her spine. What is this? Still overwhelmed, she hesitantly mutters to herself, wondering if she's dreaming, because never, never in her life has she seen anything like this before. Meanwhile, June wastes no time. He rushes back to his shut-in apartment, moving with quick, determined strides. His mind is already focused on helping his allies outside as fast as possible. The system chimes with the notification. The healer's trust level has increased. He stops for a brief moment, narrowing his eyes at the message. She hadn't trusted him before, that much was obvious. But now it seems like her perception of him has changed, even if only slightly. Still, it isn't enough for him to let his guard down. Trust takes time. And honestly, he can't blame her. If someone broke into his home out of nowhere, he wouldn't trust them either. Shaking his head, he steps onto the balcony, his gaze drifting downward. His thoughts remain heavy, but as he looks out toward the streets below, something makes his entire body freeze. His blood runs cold. A massive, ferocious red tiger is charging through the streets, its powerful limbs propelling it forward with terrifying speed. And it's chasing his allies. June's breath catches as he sees his companions below, running for their lives. Desperation is evident in the way they scramble to escape, but the monstrous beast is closing in on them, its deadly fangs gleaming under the dim light. Then, as if things couldn't get any worse, its piercing eyes lock onto its targets, its muscular body moving in perfect synchrony as it hunts his team. A wave of panic washes over June. This isn't just a dangerous situation. This is a massacre waiting to happen. June stood frozen, stunned by the chaos unfolding around him. The red tiger, which had already clashed with the werebear woman and left her gravely injured, wasn't alone. Another beast had emerged, its fiery eyes scanning the area, its massive form casting an ominous shadow. Below, panic gripped the group as the monstrous tigers advanced, and terror spread like wildfire. In an instant, the survivors scrambled for their lives, their instincts screaming at them to run, to flee, to never look back. In the midst of this desperate flight, Hirin, who had gained the power of poison, misstepped. Her foot twisted at an unnatural angle, and an intense, searing pain shot through her leg. A scream ripped through her throat as she collapsed, unable to catch her balance. The archer woman and Han, running ahead, heard the cry and immediately skidded to a halt. Panic flashed in their eyes as they turned back, calling out her name in frantic desperation. Hirin, gritting her teeth against the agony, tried to push herself up. Her body felt heavy, her limbs like lead, unresponsive to her commands. She fought to move, but her strength was failing her. With every second that passed, it became clearer. She wasn't going to make it. The archer's voice rang out, a pure scream of distress. The massive red tiger had locked onto Hirin as its prey, its muscles coiled, preparing to pounce with lethal precision. The beast's blood-red eyes gleamed with a chilling intent as it bared its fangs, ready to strike. Hirin, still struggling to stand, remained oblivious to the tiger's approach. Perhaps she was lost in disbelief, perhaps formulating a plan, or perhaps resigned to her fate. But then, she turned her head, just in time to see the tiger, mere inches away. The realization hit her like a tidal wave. Her breath caught in her throat, her heart pounding in her chest. There was no escape, no chance to survive. For a moment, her body went still, her eyes empty of hope. She braced herself for the inevitable, surrendering herself to the tiger's jaws. And then, a flash of light. Violet smoke swirled around her, and in an instant, she was gone. The tiger's jaws snapped shut, its teeth clashing in empty air. It let out a low, frustrated growl as it scanned the space where its prey had been just moments before. Confusion flickered in its glowing eyes. The hunt had been so close, and yet she was no longer there. A deep, primal fury surged through the beast at its failure. It let out a roar of frustration, the sound vibrating the air. Meanwhile, Hirin reappeared, disoriented and soaked in sweat. Her breath was shallow, ragged, as she tried to process what had just happened. Had she died? Was this some kind of afterlife? Then, the sharp pain shot through her body once more, grounding her back in reality. She was still alive, and that was when she saw him. Jay. He stood before her, calm and steady, but his eyes betrayed the intensity of the situation. It had been too close. A second longer, and she would have been dead. The weight of that realization pressed down on him like a heavy stone. Hirin, still trembling from the close call, met his gaze. She was too shaken to speak, too overwhelmed to form coherent thoughts. Above them, the other survivors were still in full flight, their fear palpable as they rushed to escape the relentless threat of the tigers. June took a steadying breath, his mind racing with calculations. At least, he thought he had bought them some time. With Hiran no longer in immediate danger, there was a slim chance the others below could make it out alive. Suddenly, his system screen flashed, pulling his attention away from the chaos around him. You have discovered individuals who meet the criteria for citizenship. Do you wish to approve their status? Before he could process the notification, a sudden movement caught his eye. Moon appeared out of nowhere, his teleportation ability dropping him into the room with a flash. In his arms was the frail form of his grandmother, her body limp but still alive. Moon's breathing was labored, but his grip on her was strong and firm. His eyes, wide with urgency, locked onto June. "Take care of her," Moon pleaded, his voice thick with desperation. June's gaze flicked between Moon and the elderly woman, his mind quickly weighing the situation. Moon's concern was evident, but there was no time to waste. A far greater danger loomed. Raising a hand, June motioned for him to stop. "Wait." Moon opened his mouth, ready to argue, to insist that June help his grandmother immediately. But then he saw it, the expression in June's eyes, the sheer gravity of the situation. Without a word, Moon's shoulders slumped. He understood now. Whatever was happening here, it was far worse than anything he had anticipated. There was no time for distractions, no time for anything but survival. Below, the red tiger continued its relentless pursuit, refusing to let up. The battle for survival raged on, and June knew that the choices he made in the next few moments would determine the fate of everyone involved. The red tiger, driven by a primal fury, relentlessly pursued the scattered group, each step thunderous as it closed the distance. June's heart raced, his fists clenched tight as he mentally braced for what he had to do. His new ability, Invisible Hand, pulsed with energy within him. He couldn't let this beast escape. It needed to die, and he was the one who would make it happen. Down below, chaos reigned. The archer, Han, and Togi, still carrying the injured werebear, fled with all their strength. They were fast, but no matter how much ground they gained, the tiger was gaining too. Han dared a quick glance back, his stomach twisting with dread. It was closing in on them. If they didn't do something soon, they would be the next meal. Without thinking, Han dug in his heels and skidded to a stop, his focus narrowing to a single action. His hand gripped one of his baseballs tightly, his fingers tingling with anticipation. A faint blue light flared around him, flickering and building in intensity as he poured everything into the throw. Then, he launched the ball with all the force he could muster, watching as it cut through the air toward the beast. For an instant, hope flickered in his chest. Maybe this would be the shot. But in the blink of an eye, the tiger moved, swift, too swift, and the ball whistled past, smashing harmlessly against the pavement. The tiger's deafening growl filled the air, and with one spine-chilling roar, it made its presence known. It was faster than any of them could keep up with, and it wasn't slowing down. The archer's frantic voice rang out, her words distorted by panic. "Run!" she screamed, her face filled with terror. But it was too late. The tiger was already locking onto Han, its eyes burning with the hunger of a predator. The beast leapt. Han's heart pounded in his chest as he turned, knowing there was no way to stop the tiger. But he had one choice left. He could run, and maybe, just maybe, he could buy the others time. A surge of adrenaline shot through him as he sprinted in the opposite direction, pushing himself harder than ever before. Every muscle screamed, but he kept moving. His legs burned and his chest ached with each labored breath. He pushed himself toward the parking lot, praying for a miracle. Perhaps goblins or some other distraction might appear to divert the tiger. But the sound of the beast's pursuit was unyielding. It was right behind him. Han took a fleeting glance over his shoulder and his breath hitched. The tiger's massive, deadly fangs gleamed in the moonlight, coming closer with terrifying speed. This was it. There was no way out. Their eyes locked for a brief, horrible moment, and an unspoken understanding passed between them. This was the end. But just as all hope seemed to shatter, something incredible happened. A strange, violent purple energy surged into the air, coiling like a serpent around the tiger's neck. The force was sudden, brutal, unlike anything Han had ever seen. It yanked the tiger down with such force that the earth beneath it cracked, the pavement shattering as the beast's head slammed into the ground. The tiger snarled in fury, thrashing against the unseen power, its claws scraping desperately at the earth as it tried to break free. The force was unyielding. Slowly, the tiger's massive body lifted from the ground, suspended in the air as if by invisible hands. The energy constricted around its throat, tightening with a merciless grip. The beast's struggles grew weaker, its limbs jerking helplessly in the air. The life was draining from it, and Han stood there, frozen, his mind racing. He knew exactly who was responsible for this. It was June. He had done it. Seconds passed, and the archer woman and Togi arrived, breathless and wild-eyed, having raced to reach Han. Their gazes locked onto the scene before them, disbelief written all over their faces. The red tiger hung suspended in midair, still thrashing but utterly helpless against the unseen force. The archer's eyes widened as a glowing system screen appeared in front of her, and she quickly scanned the information. After a moment of hesitation, her face shifted. The shock faded, replaced by calm understanding. With a deep breath, she regained her composure and took a step forward, her hand pulling an arrow from her quiver. From his vantage point above, June's eyes never left the scene. His focus was laser sharp. He didn't need to intervene any further. The tiger was done. He had given the others the time they needed. Now, as long as Gang the Archer made the final strike, June would reap the reward. 4 times the loot. Below, the red tiger, still trapped and gasping for air, thrashed desperately in a futile attempt to escape, but its fate had already been sealed. The archer, understanding the significance of this moment, took her time preparing what would be her most crucial shot yet. The tiger's fiery gaze turned to her, desperation evident in its glowing eyes. It was pleading for mercy, seeking even the faintest glimmer of hope for survival. But the woman standing before it held no sympathy. Her expression was one of cold resolve. Mercy was not an option, not for this wretched beast. She pulled back the string of her bow, channeling an intense blue aura into her arrow. The pressure emanating from the charged shot was immense, causing the very air around them to tremble. Then, with a swift, decisive motion, she released the arrow. A powerful gust of wind exploded outward as the arrow soared through the air, its force cutting through the night like a spear of vengeance. The instant it found its mark, a system notification flashed before June's eyes. You have successfully hunted a level 28 red tiger. You have gained a significant amount of experience points. 62,311,776. One has been deposited into your shut-in wallet. As the tiger's body collapsed lifelessly onto the ground, another notification appeared, this one highlighting the growing dynamics among the group. Team trust and loyalty levels have increased. Another notification followed shortly after. Han's loyalty level has exceeded 30. He now meets the requirements to be registered as a vassal. A satisfied smile played on June's lips. Everything had gone exactly as planned. He nodded to himself before selecting the prompt to accept Han's registration as his vassal. A few moments later, the scene shifted to another part of the building, where someone was being healed. It was the healer, the woman who had previously collapsed in exhaustion within one of the rooms, now fully conscious. She focused her energy, her hands glowing faintly as she tended to the wounded. The injuries of the others faded rapidly under her care, not even leaving scars behind. The first person she prioritized was the werebear woman, whose body had suffered severe damage during the brutal encounter with the red tiger. June, watching from afar, reflected on the sheer luck they all had, him included, in having found a healer in a situation like this. Han approached, still catching his breath. Without wasting any time, June turned to him and asked what had happened below, particularly why the red tigers had suddenly appeared. Han, his voice still carrying traces of exhaustion and gratitude, explained that the location where Moon's grandmother's house had once stood was likely territory belonging to the red tigers. They had managed to take one down, but another had soon appeared, proving that the area was far more dangerous than they had initially assumed. Hearing this, June processed the information carefully. It made sense. There was no reason to believe that only goblins would inhabit this region. And now that he thought about it, there hadn't been any goblins in this area. That meant the goblins had probably already invaded the buildings nearby. If that was the case, Moon's grandmother wouldn't have been safe if she had remained inside. Despite everything, the only reason she had survived was that she had unknowingly been within the red tiger's territory. June exhaled slowly, shaking his head. The sheer luck involved in this entire ordeal was truly something extraordinary. Just then, another system notification appeared before him. Healer's performance is being evaluated. 73,321 has been deducted for the mission. The healer let out a relieved sigh upon realizing that her task had been successfully completed. Seeing her reaction, June stepped forward and acknowledged her efforts, telling her that she had done a great job. However, she quickly waved off his praise and instead asked if she could finally return home. Before anyone could respond, a voice interrupted, "Wait a moment." It was Fatty, who had finally reappeared after spending some time resting and recovering from the ordeal. Scratching the back of his head, he looked around awkwardly before addressing the group. "I know this might not be the best time to bring this up, but are you guys seriously planning on gathering in my apartment all the time?" June turned his attention to Fatty and, for the first time, truly took in the number of people currently occupying the space. The realization dawned on him, and at that moment, everyone around them wore equally amused and sheepish expressions. With a small chuckle, June reassured him that there was no need to worry. He had already made all the necessary arrangements. Unit 291 stood empty and ready for occupancy. Everything needed for daily life, electricity, water, and all other essentials, would be available, and the group was free to settle in. The news was met with immediate excitement as the entire group erupted in joy. June, not wasting a moment, turned to Dabin and informed her that 2 more units, 2101 and 2102, were also available. He assured her that he would ensure the supply of electricity to these units as well, and requested that she notify the other survivors about the availability of the bathrooms and showers in those apartments. Dabin, still processing the information, exchanged a quick glance with her brother before nodding in agreement. They promised to take care of the message. June, noticing their reaction, continued by offering them something unexpected. He told them that out of the 2 available units, they could choose one for themselves. The offer took Dabin and her brother by surprise, their expressions showing pure shock. For a moment, they could barely believe what they were hearing. However, June, ever calm, maintained his composure and told them to let the others know that they could claim the other unit. Once that matter was settled, June shifted his focus to something else. He told Dabin that he had a favor to ask of her. Dabin, still taken aback by the offer, encouraged him to go ahead without hesitation. June explained that he needed her to act as the intermediary between himself and the rest of the survivors. As soon as the words left his mouth, Dabin paused, a confused expression crossing her face. She repeated his request, incredulous, "Did you mean messenger?" With unwavering seriousness, June confirmed it. He then laid out the details of his plan. He asked Dabin to inform the others that whichever team was able to hunt down 100 goblins the fastest would be rewarded with one of the empty units. But there was more. June emphasized that this was not just about gaining a place to stay. The winning team would also receive crucial supplies, unlimited electricity, running water, gas, and food, ensuring their comfort and survival. And on top of that, he proposed that if the winning team agreed to take in 10 additional survivors, those individuals would also benefit from these same resources. The room grew silent for a moment, the gravity of his proposal sinking in. June could feel the weight of his words pressing down on everyone. It wasn't just a competition, it was a challenge that would change the dynamics of their survival. Then, almost as if anticipating the hesitation that would follow, June added one final note. He told Dabin to make sure to inform everyone that the distribution of these resources might take a little longer depending on the floor of their new residence. As he observed the group's reactions, June realized that from now on, every decision would be like a move in a high-stakes game of strategy. Only those who truly proved their worth would have access to the resources they desperately needed. At that exact moment, a system notification popped up before him. A new quest had appeared, an official mission to hunt down goblins. The quest had a strict time limit of 168 hours, offering only a modest reward in experience points but with a severe penalty for failure: losing access to any shared facilities. A final message appeared before his eyes, the decision clear. Will you accept this quest? Yes or no? After June's efforts, the residents he had helped began taking matters into their own hands, hunting the goblins outside the city walls. Among them was a young man in a red jacket, running for his life as a massive horde of goblins chased after him with relentless fury. His breath came in ragged gasps, and his legs screamed in exhaustion. But there was no stopping now. The goblins were closing in, shrieking in anger, their eyes glowing with an insatiable hunger. The young man's stamina was quickly running out. Regret gnawed at him. He cursed himself for getting into this mess but pushed the thoughts aside, repeating in his mind that he just needed to hang on a little longer. Ahead, he saw it. The door into the parking lot, his last chance for survival. With a final burst of energy, he hurled himself forward, sliding across the ground in a desperate attempt to escape. His body narrowly squeezed through the doorway just as the goblin's claws swiped at him. Gasping for air, he screamed with panic, urging the others to attack now. His voice rang with fear as he warned them that the goblin's ambush was bigger than they had anticipated. A trap. 3 men armed with spears stepped forward, their faces set with grim determination. They nodded, recognizing the effort the man in red had made in luring even more goblins than expected. Without hesitation, the spearmen attacked, their weapons flashing through the air in swift, practiced strikes. Goblins fell one by one as the spears thrust through their bodies, sending the creatures stumbling back or crashing to the ground in a heap. But the goblins were not done yet. Some continued to fight fiercely, pushing forward with reckless fury, their claws slashing and teeth gnashing. The battle was a brutal dance of life and death, but the spearmen had the upper hand. Realizing the tide was turning, one of the goblins, seemingly of higher rank, let out a sharp, commanding screech, calling for a retreat. The goblins that heard the signal turned and fled in a panic, scattering in every direction. At the sight of their retreat, one of the spearmen grinned widely, his eyes twinkling with mischief. "Want to see something cool?" he asked, looking over at his teammates. Though confused, the others nodded, eager to see what he had in mind. The red-haired man stood tall, breathing deeply as he focused intently on the retreating goblins. Gripping his spear, he aimed at the fleeing creatures. Then, with an impossible burst of strength, he hurled it forward. The spear flew through the air with such speed and power that it seemed almost unreal. It sliced through the air, heading straight for a goblin that thought it had escaped. The goblin, unaware of the danger, was struck squarely in the back. It convulsed once, then crumpled to the ground, lifeless. The red-haired man looked back at the twins, his face breaking into a triumphant grin. "That was pretty cool, right?" he said. The twins, eyes wide with amazement, nodded eagerly. "That was badass," they agreed, clearly impressed. Stretching his arms, the red-haired man casually asked how many goblins each of them had taken down. The twin on the left proudly declared, "I got 22. The twin on the right, with a smug smirk, said, "I got 23. The red-haired man chuckled, clearly pleased with the results. "Well, between the three of us, we've killed over 100 goblins. Mission complete," he said, his grin widening. The twins exchanged glances, surprised at how quickly they had reached their goal. They had expected it to take much longer to eliminate so many goblins. But just then, Min, the young man in the red jacket, stormed up to them, clearly angry and frustrated. "Hey!" Min snapped, glaring at the red-haired man. "You said there were only about 10 goblins. I barely made it out alive." His voice was filled with irritation. The red-haired man's expression hardened. Veins bulged on his forehead as he snapped back. "What's your problem now? We succeeded, didn't we? You're alive and the mission's over. What's there to complain about?" Min fumed, still seething. "You seriously can't think that many goblins were just 10. You nearly got me killed." Rolling his eyes, the red-haired man waved off Min's complaints. "Well, we killed a lot of goblins, and now we're about to get a new place to live. So, quit whining." Irritated, the red-haired man turned to Min, his voice laced with frustration. "Pay attention, bro," he snapped, the use of bro suggesting a deeper connection, possibly even siblings. His face flushed, the veins bulging more as his anger mounted. "I came up with this entire hunting strategy myself. There was never any chance of failure. I also suggested the spears, which the twins crafted. All you had to do was run, something you should be very good at." Min, exasperated, let out a heavy sigh. The red-haired man, still simmering, offered him an ultimatum. "If you're so dissatisfied, then leave. Your presence is hardly making any difference at this point." Sensing the rising tension between the two men, the twins quickly intervened to prevent things from escalating further. One of them stepped forward, speaking in a calm voice. "Relax, man. Min did his part too," he reminded the red-haired man. The other twin, with a playful grin, turned to Min and said, "You did great, bro. You ran faster than I thought possible." The red-haired man clicked his tongue, clearly irritated. "Men always know how to get under my skin," he muttered, his tone thick with annoyance. Then he demanded, "How dare you talk back to me like that?" The twin who had been grinning urged Min to apologize, hoping to defuse the situation. Realizing that continuing the argument would get him nowhere, Min let out another sigh and reluctantly muttered an apology. The red-haired man huffed in response, then turned his back on Min, dismissing the entire incident. "Whatever. Let's move on. We need to get to the 21st floor to claim our new home." As they made their way to the 21st floor, ready to collect their reward, they were greeted by unexpected news. Dabin, her expression tinged with apology, informed them that another team had already beaten them to it and claimed the reward. The group froze, disbelief and shock overtaking them. They had been quick. There was no way another team could have completed the mission before them. The red-haired man's face darkened, irritation flaring once more. "Are you telling me someone beat us to slaying 100 goblins?" he demanded, his voice low and dangerous. Dabin nodded, confirming it. The red-haired man could hardly believe it. His brow furrowed and he snapped, "Stop joking around, Dabin. Hand over the house already." But Dabin's serious expression made it clear that she was not kidding. "It's no joke," she said firmly. "The team that finished first is already here." Just as she finished speaking, the group that had managed to finish the hunt even faster arrived. Seeing who they were only made the red-haired man even more frustrated. The group was led by Dabin's brother and an elderly couple, both of whom appeared unusually cheerful, as if nothing was out of the ordinary. Dabin turned to her brother, her voice curious. "How did things go with June?" Her brother explained, "We made a deal. In exchange for giving up the new house, we've secured food, electricity, and other necessities for both our own home and the elderly couples. Additionally, their daughters won't have to take part in missions anymore." Dabin frowned, immediately pointing out the flaw in the arrangement. "But their daughters are minors. They should have been exempt from missions in the first place." The elderly couple, however, maintained their pleasant smiles, unfazed by the comment. The elderly man explained, "Our daughters may look young, but they're actually adults. They're older than they appear." The elderly woman added with a chuckle, "They're likely skilled with bows and arrows. My husband worries about them too much, but they're more than capable." Dabin's brother further clarified, "As part of the agreement, we'll be providing them with bows and arrows." Dabin's expression darkened. "Wait a minute. Are they planning to keep hunting goblins?" she asked, her voice laced with suspicion. Her brother nodded, confirming that they planned to continue hunting goblins, but he clarified that June had only requested the goblins in the nearby areas. The goblins were relentless, constantly emerging no matter how many were killed, and it was essential to keep their numbers under control. As he absorbed this information, the red-haired man's frustration only grew. He waved his hand dismissively. "Enough with the pointless chatter," he snapped. Then in a sharp voice, he questioned whether they were giving themselves special treatment simply because they were in charge. "Isn't that a bit unfair to the rest of us?" Dabin's brother nodded in agreement. "That's why June had a plan," he explained. The second and third groups were tasked with killing 100 goblins and heading to the 30th floor for their rewards. A genuine smile spread across Dabin's face as she reassured the group. "Everything's been sorted out. You can head to the 30th floor now. Ku Jun will be waiting for you there." Despite the reassurance, the red-haired man remained visibly bitter, still annoyed at not being the first group. As they ascended in the elevator, his irritation boiled over and he suddenly asked, "Is his name really June? He looks younger than all of us." With a sarcastic laugh, he added, "It's almost laughable hearing you speak so highly of him." One of the twins joined in on the sarcasm, teasing, "Maybe you think June's some kind of god or something." The other twin scoffed, chiming in, "God? Please. At best, he's just the leader of some cult." He then paused as if pondering the idea before asking, "Do you think this Ku Jun guy is even sane?" Min, who had been silent up until that moment, spoke up quietly, his tone calm but firm. "You're all protected because of June's abilities. Maybe you don't have the right to talk about him like that." The moment Min's words left his mouth, the atmosphere in the elevator shifted. Tension thickened the air, and the others seemed visibly irritated. The red-haired man, his frustration peaking, shot a glare at Min. "Are you all trying to get on June's good side?" He spat, his voice filled with contempt. An uncomfortable silence settled over the group. All eyes were now on Min. The red-haired man, seething, muttered curses under his breath and turned to glare over his shoulder at Min. "We'll talk about this later," he warned, his voice low and dangerous. Just then, the twins noticed something unusual. June was approaching them, walking at an unhurried pace, one hand casually tucked into his pocket. As he drew nearer, he flashed them a small, relaxed smile and greeted them with a simple, "Hello." The casualness of the greeting, combined with the way June carried himself, sent a wave of shock through the group. A nervous feeling crept up on the red-haired man, and, hesitantly, he extended his hand. "Beck Sanjob," he introduced himself. June shook his hand firmly but casually, acknowledging him with a brief nod. "I've been watching how you and your team hunted," he remarked casually. "You made excellent use of the barrier, and your strategy was very effective." Hearing this sent a chill down Sanjob's spine. His voice trembled slightly as he asked, "How do you know that?" June didn't answer. Instead, he simply smiled and shifted the conversation. "From now on, I'll be providing electricity, water, and gas to Units 1301 and 1502. Sanjob, still trying to wrap his mind around everything, managed to mutter a thank you but couldn't help himself from asking, "How is any of this possible? How are you doing all of this?" For the second time, June ignored the question. He simply reminded them, "Since you've successfully hunted 100 goblins, you're now eligible for these benefits." But just as the situation couldn't get any more unsettling, June's expression shifted into something darker. A disturbingly eerie smile spread across his face, and his tone turned chilling as he added, "By the way, I'm not some cult leader." His eyes glinted with amusement, and he continued, "I certainly don't have any intention of becoming a god." The words hung in the air, leaving the group frozen, paralyzed by an overwhelming sense of fear. They stood motionless, unable to react to the unnerving shift in the atmosphere. With that same eerie smile, June raised his hand near his mouth as if about to share a secret. "There's just one more thing," he said, his voice carrying an unsettling undertone. "I have a request to make of you."
Not long after, the group is seen sprinting at full speed, their breaths ragged as they flee from an unseen threat. As the perspective shifts to the front, it becomes clear. They aren't escaping from goblins this time. Towering, bloodthirsty orcs are in pursuit, their heavy footfalls shaking the ground. The four desperately weave through the streets, taking sharp turns in an attempt to put as much distance as possible between themselves and the rampaging monsters. Up ahead, Han stands, calmly gripping several spears. A faint smirk plays on his lips as he acknowledges their effort. With the orcs still fixated on their fleeing targets, Han takes his time, channeling his energy into a spear. A blue aura flares around the weapon, pulsating with raw power. Just then, a system notification appears. Han, level 33. Title, 6th Knight. Trust, 70. Loyalty, 78. His awakened ability, throwing, is displayed. Han's throws were already devastating, but with the consumption of mental energy, he can now magnify his attack strength by up to 5 times. As he steadies himself, energy visibly gathers along the spear's blade. The system provides additional information. His physical stats increase relative to his loyalty. All experience points and loot from monsters are tripled, and knights possess an accelerated growth rate. Without hesitation, Han launches the spear with immense force, striking one of the leading orcs directly. The instant the spear impales its target, another orc lets out a furious roar. Gripping an enormous machete, it charges at Han, intent on delivering a fatal blow. Yet Han remains unfazed. From the backline, an arrow infused with energy is already cutting through the air. It finds its mark, embedding itself deep into the orc's skull. With a heavy thud, the beast collapses. The archer had been covering Han all along. This was why he never wavered. As the second orc crumples to the ground, Han wastes no time. He draws another spear and hurls it at the third orc. When the weapon finds its target, Han finally exhales. "That's the last one," he mutters. A system notification pops up for June. You have successfully hunted a level 19 orc. Wands have been awarded for completing the mission, eliminate 100 orcs. With the task now finished, 3 individuals who had been hiding nearby cautiously emerge. Han approaches them, assuring them of a safe place to go. As they move toward the rest of the group, the system abruptly issues an alert. Unauthorized individuals are attempting to enter. A prompt appears before June, asking if he would like to grant them citizenship. Deactivating his ultimate eyes, June studies the 3 newcomers on the system interface. Upon confirming their acceptance, the total number of citizens under his protection reaches 200. A system notification immediately follows. Citizenship granted. Total citizens, 200. As the milestone is reached, the system reveals that unlocking new population thresholds grants additional abilities. This time, a new feature activates: tax collection. This ability allows June to claim 10% of all money possessed by his citizens, but it comes with a 30-day cooldown. June quickly realizes that this function effectively redirects a